So first of all, I have this article. Does anyone know what JAMA is? Journal of American Medical Association. They published a paper, which is interesting, on the physical death of Jesus. And some of his suffering and his issues, possibilities why he died, how he died. And it's an interesting read. If you want a copy, I can email it to you. But you got to put your name and email address on here, and I'll be glad to send you a copy. All right? All right. Second of all, I appreciated people's remarks after this morning's sermon, because it is the heart of the gospel, isn't it? Jesus Christ and him crucified. And so tonight we have a challenge, because we're going to talk about, as I announced, the 7 sayings of Jesus on the cross. And usually I do one saying per week for 7 weeks. And we're going to try to condense it all into 40 minutes. I'm not like Mariano, who said, yeah, we'll be here for 7 hours. He's funny, isn't he? What Jesus says on the cross is really the heart of the gospel that comes out of his mouth. And so there's so much to learn from it, and that's why we want to look at them briefly, and then you can examine them some more on your own. So that's what we're going to do. Again, Paul, was he an educated man? Yes. Who taught him, by the way? Yeah, he was like the premier teachers, rabbis of his day. And Paul, he gives some of his pedigree in Philippians 3, Hebrew of Hebrews. And he says, I count it all as dung, or that's manure, for the value of knowing Christ. And he says something very similar here. I don't want to know anything. I don't want to boast about anything, but the only thing I want to know is Jesus Christ and him crucified. Because that's all that matters. And that should be a message to us. We should know all about the cross and what it means to us and what it says about our Father and his attitude towards sin and his attitude towards us. I mean, there's so much to learn just by looking at the cross. And also, I talked this morning that we got a lot of bystanders. We're going to look at them in just a second. That people look at the cross, but they're really not living beneath the cross. Because you can be aware of what happened to Jesus and what he did, but it's only those that live before the cross or in a relationship with him that are trying to walk like him. And we're going to try to build on that thought this evening or afternoon, okay? So there's 7 sayings, of course, as you know, that Jesus uttered while he's on the cross. And we want to look at them individually in order. But in Luke chapter 23, I want you to let this verse kind of just sink in. And all the crowds who came together for this spectacle, ... There were crowds at the cross. And to them it was what? Entertainment. That's a spectacle, that's right. And like, whoa, Jesus the Messiah, that so-called son of David, and now he's getting crucified. There were large crowds there, and maybe you've never realized that. And with this word spectacle, when you look it up, it's this word, see it on the bottom, theoria, that's the Greek word. We get from that theater. This is a theatrical event for them. Like you said, entertainment. Like, what do you want to do? Let's go watch Jesus get crucified. Now, what? Really? Something as horrific as that? But people, when there's an accident on the northbound lanes and you're going southbound, what does everyone in the southbound lane do? They're gawkers. Yeah, rubberneck. That's right. And there's something wrong when people just gawk or they just look on, but they don't live beneath. And that's what most of these people are doing. And we don't ever want to fall into that trap. But we want to draw near to the cross of Jesus. Draw near to Jesus. And fix our eyes on Jesus. And that means sometimes we have to go through the painful experience of the lesson this morning. Like, you did that for me? Because you got to remember, it's my sin that put him there. You have to personalize it, right? My sin put him there. Because when all the sins of the world, that's so generic, it means nothing. No, my lie, my offenses, my sin put him there. And that makes it personal. But what's powerful is that from that, we're going to realize I have forgiveness. Yes?
Yeah, well, it makes it personal
Yes. Yes. And I think it empowers us too. Like, I couldn't take care of my sin. I've been running from them, hiding them, and you've dealt with it, and I'm free. That's empowering, isn't it? And you're more grateful, and you're more courageous to speak out. So we'll do them in order. And even though they're found in different texts, the order is pretty much agreed upon. The first one would be, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. Number two, the two thieves on the cross, he says to one of them, today you will be with me in paradise. Actually says, truly. Then he addresses his mother, which is very interesting. Woman, behold thy son. And then after that, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? This is one that's challenging. It's debated about what it really means. 5, I thirst. And 6, it is finished. And then last one, Father, into thy hands I commit my spirit. Now you say, what can you get out of those sayings? That you could even do one lesson, much 7. Well, I just want to give you an introduction to them so you get an idea of what is there. So let's look at the first one when we look at it. So all it says in the text, which is interesting, because if it was a fiction novel and you're going to talk about the climax of your story, they're killing the guy on the cross, would you excruciatingly go through every detail of that crucifixion? I mean, if you're writing a novel for emotional sake, a fiction. Yeah, you would drag it out and people just, all it says is what? They crucified him. No details. 0. We gave the details this morning, all right? And that's why that's so important, so you have an idea of what was going on. Or else it's just lost on. Oh, yeah, they killed him. No. They crucified him. That's a big statement. But while he's on the cross, he's going to speak to his Father, to his disciples and mothers, and actually he's going to speak to us because they're left for our benefit, right? So the first one is here when he's up there and saying, Father, forgive them, for they know what they're doing. The first thing he says is to his Father. It's a prayer, right? Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. Now, what's your first pushback on that statement?
They know what they're doing.
Yeah. What do you mean they don't know what they're doing? They know what they're doing. When they were given the option of releasing Barabbas, or Jesus, one was a murderer and one was not innocent. They chose Jesus. They said, crucify him. Yeah. So why did he say he doesn't know they don't know what they're doing? Willie. That's right. It's a mystery still. And they should know that he is the Son of God, and many of his disciples did, and that's why they believe in him, but they really don't know what they're doing, even though they know what they're doing. Yes?
In my experience, especially in the last few years, that people as a whole are sheep.
Yes.
And it takes
Wow.
one or two charismatic leaders to say the things to get anybody to follow almost anything.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, because Ann and I have had that conversation like everybody's sheep. They want to follow somebody or something. And they don't, like World War II and Nazi. Sheep. Yes, Lisa.
Even the disciples, he told them this was going to happen.
And they didn't understand.
Yeah.
That's right. So if you ever did something knew you were doing was wrong, but you really didn't know what you're doing, you're like, why did I do that? Well, you knew it was wrong, but why did you do it? It happens. And that's Jesus' attitude towards all of them. He says, forgive them. Now, does God forgive them just because Jesus made the request? No. What do they have to do to find forgiveness for murdering Jesus? Yes. But that's right. There's got to be repentance and confession and some type of acknowledgement of their sin. But Jesus is saying, I'm releasing my hold over them. Don't you counter to their charge. You deal with them, but you forgive them on my account if they come to you. Isn't that powerful? Now, that's our message for us. If he can do that, such a grievous sin, what could someone do against me that I could not forgive them of? That trumps this? There'd be nothing. But yet it's so hard. Exactly. But why do we have so hard time forgiving people? It's interesting, on the way, he sees these women weeping. And in Luke's account, he addresses them. This is before he's on the cross. Says, daughters of Jerusalem, stop weeping for me. Weep for yourselves and your children. Do you remember that account? Now, what do you mean, stop weeping for me? Well, because we love you and you're dying. They're going to kill you and they're crying, right? And he says, stop, weep for yourself and your children. What's he referring to? Does anyone know? The coming destruction of Jerusalem. Because Jesus has promised, Matthew 23, that all the guilt of all the prophets and apostles that are going to be murdered are going to fall upon this generation. Why that generation of Jews? The Son of God. It's all going to fall on them, and the destruction of Jerusalem, where God's wrath is going to come upon Jerusalem. All the Christians got out of town. Said, no, you need to weep for yourself because you don't realize how serious condition you're in. All right? And so when we look at the cross, we learn we're all under condemnation, are we? Who of us cannot look at the cross and realize I'm a sinner? And if you can't say that, you're not looking at the cross. All of us have put him there. We're all under condemnation. And then if you just leave it at that, we're all going to feel guilty and go home and stop worshiping God, right? But on the cross, we understand our condemnation, our guilt, but we also receive what? Mercy and grace. We see that because the first words out of his mouth is what? God, forgive Jack Hafer. His sins put me here, but forgive him because he didn't know what he's doing. Thank you, Lord. And that's the only place we're going to find forgiveness is at the cross, living beneath the cross. You're not going to find it anywhere else. And that's why we worship together, because we're approaching Jesus and the cross really all the time, every time we eat the Lord's Supper. And we're reminded that blood was shed for the forgiveness of sins. Isn't that what Jesus said? This is my blood shed for the forgiveness of sins. Do this in memory of me. And so it's interesting. A lot of times people want to make God more loving, but actually you make him less loving. Until we understand how terrible sin is, and that's why Jesus is there. It took that to find forgiveness for us, the shedding of his divine blood on the cross. Until you understand how terrible sin is, you won't appreciate the sacrifice. And then you won't even have the courage, the motivation to change your own life. Well, it's not that bad. Everyone's doing it. Do you ever even rationalize your own behavior that way? You know, it's at the cross where we realize how sinful sin is, and then that makes us appreciate how loving God really is. Yes, Esther.
This statement, daughters of Jerusalem.
Yes.
Is it because women are more emotional, so they're crying for him? Because where are the men?
Yeah, good question.
Where are the mothers?
Yeah.
They are the head of the home.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this like because women
Yeah.
are more sentimental, so they cry, and the men don't cry because they're
Yeah.
rough.
It's an interesting observation, and I can't answer entirely except for Jesus addresses them because they're the ones that are crying. I know the apostles who scattered, they're brokenhearted too. I don't know if they're crying visibly, like Peter wept before the crucifixion, but yeah. He's addressing them because women generally are the more nurturing, loving kind. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my wife loves my kids emotionally more than I ever would. It's just because she gave birth to them. Yeah. You just can't get rid of that. Yes, someone had their hand up. Oh, David.
A commander in an army,
Yeah.
a leader. You follow that leader because he's experienced.
Yeah.
He's been through it, and he can help guide you and protect you and hopefully get you out of the war alive.
Yeah.
Jesus suffered everything.
Yeah.
As a leader, as the Son of God, he gave us all the examples, and he died for his creation.
Yeah.
Who better to follow that?
Yeah.
He's gone through all the pain and suffering that we will ever experience in our lives. He did it, and he did it because now he can understand. He understands
Yeah.
And we can approach him and he fully understands
Yes.
everything.
That's right. So what sin is there with that in your mind that Jesus would not forgive? If he can forgive them on the cross, can he forgive everything else? Yes. Yeah, so let's look at that when he says, because, again, I'm going to emphasize forgiveness is only found on the cross. That's right. No exception. You're not going to find it in good works or just trying to be a nice guy or saying a lot of prayers or, vain repetitions that some people do. You're going to find it at the cross. And you're just asking God to forgive you and let the blood of Jesus, that's 1 John 2, we have an advocate with our Father, Jesus Christ, who's a propitiation. His blood is shed for our sin. He's faithful to forgive us. And so Jesus then likewise to his disciples, I want you to do to others like I just did for you. You forgive us our debts. This is the prayer, right? To the high priest, or the prayer, the pattern that he says, forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Now, in the other account, he says, if you do not forgive others, what? God won't forgive you. Yes.
My description of that is like a vow. How much you want? You want all the forgiveness? Completely forgive. Open it up all the way.
Yeah, there's not partial forgiveness. That's a good point. It's all or none. Yeah. I like that. I like that. So when we look at that idea, we bear with one another, forgiving each other who has a complaint, just as the Lord forgave you, okay? And so we got to remove all the objections, because when you live beneath the cross, you learn how to forgive. And so think about a person that's approaching the cross, and he's got this issue with someone in his life, and he says, I want to forgive them, but Lord, they don't deserve it. You ever said that? Now, when you look up at Jesus, can you say that? Because did we deserve what he's doing right then? Yes. Did we deserve it? No, the forgiveness. Oh, yeah. I got to make my question better. When we're looking up and he says, Lord, forgive Jack, can I say, oh, yeah, I deserved it? No, we didn't deserve any of it. So can you look at Jesus and say, I'd like to forgive so-and-so, but they don't deserve it? You can't say that. And stand before the cross. You have to leave. But it'll melt your heart, won't it? How about another objection sometimes? Well, they owe me. Okay? Yeah. What do we owe Jesus? Everything, but we can't pay except with our very life and separation. How about, well, it's hard. Is forgiving hard sometimes? Yes. Now, can you look up at Jesus and say, it's hard, I can't do it? You can't say it. You can't say it and look at Jesus and listen to his words. Father, forgive them.
Or say it's hard, but I'm not you.
Yeah. Yeah. You can say, it's hard, Lord, help me to be better, forgive like you forgave me. Right? The last one, I don't want to condone. You ever done it? Well, if I forgive them, they'll think I approve it. No. God said what? Jesus, forgive them. Is he condoning their actions? No. They don't know what they're doing. They still have to repent and all that. We understand that. That's one saying, okay? And so when we look at it, could you have a lot of lessons just on this one saying? Let's look quickly, move next one. The second saying is, truly, truly I say to you, you'll be with me in paradise. This one's profound, and it's just kind of, I really don't understand it, because it's an example of forgiveness in real time. So he had to set the picture, because he was crucified with a criminal on the right and a criminal on the left, right? Why are they there? They deserve it. That's all you need to know. What was the crime? We don't know, but they were the worst of the worst. They deserve it. And what's 11th hour confession or a deathbed conversion? What is that? What do we mean by that? 11th hour conversion. Someone's dying, and like, oh man, if you just accept Christ, we get him baptized, you'll be saved the last moment. So you've lived 70 years faithful to Christ. This guy, at the last moment, he's a heathen, and man, he just accepts Christ, gets baptized. Last moment, he saves himself. He's like, that's not fair. Well, look what's going to happen here, okay? So we have these guys. They were criminals. We learned that. And they were insulting originally both of them. It says that in the text in Matthew 27. But one of them comes to his senses for some reason, all right? He says, are you not the Christ that want save yourself and us? That's his abuse. You know, come on. If you're really the Christ, save us both. Get us down from here. And the other one comes back and says, don't you even fear God? Since you're under the same sentence of condemnation, you're going to die too. Why are you making him feel bad? Because you're in the same condition. In verse 41, indeed, we are suffering justly, for we are receiving what we deserve. What does that guy realize? I'm a sinner. I'm guilty. Yeah, and this man has done nothing wrong. He knew something about Jesus, didn't he? So this is where it just gets crazy. And that's a graphic picture, but it probably looked worse than that. He looks over, after rebuking the guy, he realized Jesus in it, and he makes this request. Jesus, remember me. Wow. When you come in your kingdom, but remember me. That's the last moment confession, isn't it? And request. And what right does he have to ask that? None. I mean, what has he done to ask for a favor from Jesus? None. But what does Jesus do? And that's what's amazing. He says, remember when you come in your kingdom. And here's Jesus' reply. Truly today, I say to you, today you'll be with me in paradise. My first thought about it, salvation is a lot easier than you think it is. What did this guy do to get saved? Did he do any works? Did he go out and say sorry to all the people that he's wronged? And all the people he murdered? He visited their families, returned things he stole? Has he ever been to worship service? Has he done anything? Nothing.
He admitted his guilt to Jesus and believed in him.
But what did he do physically? Nothing. But he was humble. You're right. Salvation's a lot easier than we think it is. We make it harder than it is. Well, I don't know if I'm good enough to go to heaven. Well, you're not, first of all. Let's just get that straight. Well, I don't know if I deserve to go to heaven. Guess what? You don't deserve. Let's get that out of the way. Anything we come up with, the answer is, you're right, you don't. But it's not about you. It's about Jesus on the cross. And if he can look over and say, here's the gospel in 7 words. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 13 words. Truly. What does that mean? Mark it down. This is going to happen because I said so. And if you don't have the confidence that you're going to heaven today, if you die on the way home or if Jesus comes, you don't understand what Jesus is saying here. You're not living beneath the cross. You're a spectator still. I'm trying to say that nicely. And we don't want to be spectator there for the theater because it's fun. We like the social and all that. But when you're looking up at Jesus and you hear him say, truly, today you'll be in paradise. I have all the conviction in the world that his grace saves even me. Truly. Who's saying it? Is he lying? Or truly. Then I say to who? You. Not the person next to you. And you got to hear him say, I say to you, Jack Hafer, you will be where? With me. Where? Heaven. That's the gospel, isn't it? The good news. And that comes from where? Visiting the cross and looking at Jesus and listening to him. And that's our conviction. It's a lot easier to go to heaven than we ever thought. Now, why do we live and worship and do things like this? Because we need lessons like this to keep us strong, because Satan's lying to us saying you're not good enough, you're not going to go. And we have to fight back and push back by huddling together as family to build ourselves up, right? With that being said, there's a lot of people in Dallas need to hear this message. Anna was talking about just young people as well. We got to start with that, because a lot of people don't know how easy it is to be saved. Yes?
The thing I run into over and over again, Jack, is that the more I learn, I knew I was no good before I came to Christ. But the more I learn,
That's healthy.
Honestly, from bad to worse.
Mm-hmm.
I was far more wretched than I even imagined, and I knew it was hell-bound bad.
Nice. I appreciate that. Nice, because we need to come to that place.
So how does one get around that? You know,
Just look.
I don't deserve this.
You don't.
I don't have this coming. How can this even be true?
Ye-
It's like winning the lottery 1,000 times in a row. How can this be possible?
How are we saved? Jesus said, whoever believes in me. And the answer is so easy, but it's so hard. You just got to listen to Jesus and trust what he says is true. Amen. He said, I'm going to save you. That's the end of the matter. But Satan doesn't want you to believe that. Well, that's true for everybody else, but not you, because you were too bad. Oh, yeah. And Satan uses that to get you to quit. Paul said, I'm the chief of sinners. Yet I was shown mercy because I acted in ignorance. And as a pattern that if God can save me, he can save what? Anyone. So sometimes we're full of ourselves, think we're the chief of sinners. No, you're not. Paul got that label, right? And get over yourself. If Christ can save Paul, he can surely save you. Just keep looking at the cross, all right? I don't know, it's an amazing reply. 10 words in the Greek, I think is what it is. The third one. We might have to just go through half and finish later. Would that be okay? Good, I have 2 lessons. This one is touching. Anna, my good friend, Oliver and Nancy, you've probably heard her talk about it. We grew up together in the Lord, and they had adopted 2 kids, and 10 years ago, his youngest son died down in Bakersfield working on the train. He was what, 19? 18. And it was 10-year anniversary 2 days ago. You never get over that, do you? Never get over that. And it's because family, right? And I think we see the humanity of Jesus here because this is all about family, right? So let's set up the event and look at it. We have Mary and John. It's the one of the disciples whom Jesus loved, right? And Mary, it was said about her in Luke 2 when Jesus was teaching in the temple and he did all these amazing things. When the Magi come and visited, she had a scrapbook where? She treasured all these things, wrote them in her heart, like, wow. Now, she knew that he's going to be the Savior of the world. Why? Well, the angel told her, but did she understand that? She knew he was a miraculous birth because she knew her own body that she had known no man. This was from the Holy Spirit. So she had more reasons like, who is this man? Now, there was a time period, her and her brothers, or Jesus' brothers, thought he was crazy, and they're trying to rescue him, right? You're going to get yourself killed telling everyone you're God. Well, guess what? He got himself killed. So now we move forward, and here's this large crowd spectators. They're just gawkers, but who's in the crowd? John, the disciple he loves, and his mom. You can't get a more touching moment than this because you don't want to see your son die, who you've treasured in your heart all these years. And Jesus, all the things he's going through, he has the audacity to speak to the thief. He didn't deserve it. Say, today you'll be with me in paradise. Does that show grace? The guy, and then he turns to his mother. Because that's the most important thing right now. Quickly.
When Jesus got lost, and then what says Jesus said, didn't you know it must be about my Father?
Oh, yeah.
Mary treasured it in her heart.
Yeah.
And now here at the cross, thinking about that, the Father, now she gets to see
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, exactly. She was told that a sword will pierce even your own soul. That's interesting because she had no idea what that meant, but you just have to put yourself, if you're a mom especially, to watch your son die. It's like a sword. Huh?
They say a mother dies
Dies
twice.
twice.
Seeing her son die and
Yeah, wow. So, when we look at this, but standing by the cross, Jesus were his mother and his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. So there's more than just his mom. And when Jesus saw his mother, and the disciple whom he loved standing by, who would that be again? John. He said to his mother, and here it is, his saddest hour, his darkest hour, he's making a priority family. And that's what I want you to see, family. Yeah, I'm dying. It's unfair, it's not just, it's wicked, and I'm just in a terrible mess. He's hurting, he's exhausted, but when he sees his mom, that's a top priority. And what does he say? Woman, behold your son. What's he doing when he says that? He's reassigning relationships.
He's not saying goodbye to her, but he's saying you take care of her. I'm in someone else's hand now.
That's right. I'm dying. And then he says to John, behold your mother. He's reassigning relationships. John, you take care of her. And Mom, you depend upon him to take care of you. And that's the best thing we can do with our parents, our families, is take care of them in their older years, right? But notice the humanity showing how important family is. That at his darkest hour, that's what he pays attention to. And so when we look at this, there's both provision and purpose. He's providing for her, and he's doing it on purpose because that's his responsibility. You know what it says in the 10 Commandments, honor your father and mother? You know what that means? It doesn't mean just say nice things to them. You honor them by how? They took care of you and sacrificed when you were a baby. You take care of them when they're older, and they become like children again, don't we, as older folks? It's and financial sacrifice, that's on you. It's not on Uncle Sam. Now, we do have an uncle that takes care of it, so it's a lot easier in America. But we have to pick up the slack. That's what God is showing to us through Jesus here on the cross. So you can be a spectator at the cross of Jesus, or you can be a servant. Because John got a new job right then. What was it? I'm going to have to serve Jesus' mother. Do you think he go, oh man, I got to go over to Mary's house again? Or do you think he just was thrilled to be able to do that for Jesus Christ? What a pleasure, an honor to take care of the mother of Jesus. But this is the problem. There's a lot of people that stand before the cross, they're spectators, even in the church, and don't have a servant mentality. They're just watching. They like the theater. It's good. Makes me cry or makes me happy. But a real person that looks up at Jesus and fixes their eyes, they have a servant heart because he is now serving me. By dying, I'm going to serve him. Cool? We have time for one more. The fourth saying. This is the hardest. It comes off your lips kind of nice. It's sort of like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. I just like saying it, right? At the 9th hour, so the cross, you've been on the cross for, 6 hours now? He cried out with a loud voice, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. Which translated is, my God, why have you forsaken me? So the big debate about this, did God actually turn his back on Jesus or not? Did he actually forsake him or not? And there's a big one side, no, God would never forsake his son because he promised another. But the other side, no, that's what he says because he's taken the sins of the world. God had to look away because he can't look at sin. I want you to appreciate the debate because it's fair, all right? So some say, well, if God never forsake him, what's he saying here? He feels abandoned. That's what they'll say. Because he's dying on the cross and he's all alone and his life is just slowly eking out of him, his last breath. And my God, didn't Job do that? See, Job is a picture of Jesus in many ways. He suffered immensely, but without ever blaspheming or sinning, did he come close to questioning God? Like, yeah, oh yeah. Because why did you abandon me? So they say that's what he's doing here. The other side is, no. For that dark hour, because darkness came over the land, God had to turn his back and allow him to die. Now, I would land myself more on that side because I think that's actually what happened. He who knew no sin actually became sinful. It didn't say he took on or said he became sin. You have to understand that. This is the first time he's felt total separation, because that's what sin does, from his Father. Darkness, void. He's alone on that cross. This is a cry spiritually that you've probably wailed one time in your life or not more, where you feel alone and you feel the pain of your sin and you feel like you're totally abandoned and you're, my God, my God. It's probably the healthiest time in your life, because that's when you'll start crying to him and he'll start listening. When you seek him, he'll let you find him. But when you feel that loneliness and because of your sin, that's the only time you'll turn around and truly seek him. And that's only happens by looking at Jesus on the cross. And if we haven't got there, maybe we're still living in the world. Haven't got to that point. And we read that in 1 John, that don't love the world or things in the world, because you can't love God if you do. So real quickly, we'll look at this. I would understand God's punishing sin. The wrath that should have fallen on you and me, because remember we read in Isaiah, God smit him for our sake. He took our curse and placed it on Jesus. The wrath and judgment that should have fallen rightly on me is now falling on Jesus. Right? That's hard. Like, that's not fair. Well, it's a loving God making it right, because justice demanded someone had to die for what I did. And how could Jesus die for everyone's sin? Because he's deity. He's not just a man. He's divine. He's a creator. He can give himself for everyone. So we look at that. He became sin for us. That's what the text says. And I think that just kind of nails it. He didn't become like sin. He didn't just take the punishment. He became sin for us. And God can't see sin. He can't look at it. Right. Yes, Willie.
Do you think because has God always walked with Jesus on earth, that for the first time ever,
Ever.
all of a sudden God was not right there beside him?
Right.
What you're saying is in eternity past, and he wasn't
Yeah.
like holy.
Yeah, if those words would be fair. If that's the best way, yes. It's the first time in his life he's felt alone from God. Isn't that sad? Because what did he do wrong? And whose will was it that this all should happen? The Father. And that's why we can appreciate in the garden, he said, God, let this cup pass from me. I don't think it was so much the crucifixion, it was taking on the sin. Because the real battle is going to happen. He's going to have to enter Hades and fight Satan as soon as he dies. That's a whole other story. And he did. He conquered him. But that's the real battle. This was just, they're killing me. That's all. So, when we look at that, Galatians says, Christ redeemed us from the curse of the law, having become a curse for us. Does that kind of nail it? He became the curse. And what is that curse? Well, it's the curse of sin that separates us from God, death. The soul that sinneth shall die. And death passed to all men from Adam because all have sinned. Who is the only exception? Jesus, until now. He took on our sin and took on the curse with it. Wow. Yes, Mary. Yeah. 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 And I think it's a cry of anguish. He asked, how, I'd understand, if he knew what God's plan was and he knew he was fulfilling it, why is he crying out, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? And I don't think there's, it's not a mental question that requires a academic answer. Because Jesus is not looking for an academic answer. You're right, he knows why. But it's a cry of anguish. He's alone. He's alone. My God, where are you? Why did you? He knows, but he's still crying out. It's his humanity. That's the only answer I could give. It might be wrong, but I think that's what it is. Have you ever done anything like that? Like, why did you do that? You can't give an answer sometimes why you did something. Right? Yes.
Well, that's emotional too.
Yeah.
If you look at the part when Lazarus dies, it says that Jesus wept.
Yeah, he wept.
He wept. Here's Creator weeping for the creation because he sympathizes and he feels it, and now he's in that position of dying, and he.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I can see that happening.
Yeah.
I can understand it.
Yeah. No, very good. So the answer is, did God turn away from him? And I would say, yes. There's something in the movie called The Passion by Mel Gibson. And for the most part, that movie followed the Bible pretty accurately, except for this point that I'm going to share with you. It was not in the Bible, but it was touching. Because when he's on the cross and he dies like this, they pan up to heaven and there's a tear that drops out of heaven and falls all the way to the earth. Do you remember that? It's like a tear from the Father. Huh? That's Hollywood, right? Hollywood. Now, that did not, it's not, yeah, Hollywood. That did not happen in the Bible, but I think, do you think it hurt our Father? Oh, yes. Yes. Yes.
So even though I think it's in Psalm 18, he's not saying this to fulfill prophecy, even though it fulfills prophecy.
Yes.
He really feels this.
That's a good point. He's not just saying it because I got to check off that prophecy. This is actually happening. So have you ever been alone? I mean, hurt and so abandoned, like no one understands? I think that's what happens when people get suicidal. Just stand before the cross. Look up at Jesus. And he's going to fill a void that no one else can fill. No one. It's impossible to fill that void anywhere else except at the cross of Jesus. He's the only one that stands. He's the only one that can make it right. We talk about that God-shaped hole, right? And when we don't have Jesus, we don't have the Father, that hole is empty and it just gets bigger and it becomes more depressing. We're crying, God, where are you? Stand before the cross and fix your eyes on Jesus. So, when we look at this thing, I'm going to skip ahead because we're going to stop right here. Because in the end, Jesus breathed his last breath, right? And he closed his eyes. It didn't say that in the text, but did he close his eyes? Why? He's dead. He's dead. There's coming a day in our lives when our eyes will close. And I love going to sleep because I know I'll wake up in the morning and it's nice getting refreshment. And if you have dreams, that's great. That's fine. But you're always aware. You go to sleep, you know you're going to wake up the next morning, right? Well, we don't think about not waking up, though. But that's what I'm saying. There's going to be a day that you're going to close your eyes, you will not wake up. Yeah. But if we're fixing our eyes on Jesus, when we open them again, who will we see? In the person. That's right. And that's the glory of standing and living before the cross. Because God will never abandon you, never fail you, never forsake you, even in death. Even if we have to live a martyr's death. And that might be coming to this country, I don't know. And that's our hope, isn't it? That's why it's the good news of the gospel. And it's going to happen to all of us. Some of you sooner than others. Your eyes will close. You will never see you again on this earth until Jesus comes again. But it's okay. Because the last words he said, Father, into thy hands I commit my spirit. Because we have this assurance he's going to take us home. We're okay. So I wanted to just jump there because I don't want to leave this with the idea that God abandoned. No, he's always there for us. And it's only found at the cross. And that's why we live beneath the cross. Okay, we're going to sing a song. What is it?
Jesus paid it all.
All right, let's sing that together. Then we'll have our announcements or a closing prayer.